So the inspiration behind this project actually came from a pretty random act of kindness, and I just kind of wanted to share that. So I play piano and organ at a church in Pecatonica, and there was one day when I got a phone call from somebody at the church who had been contacted by somebody else, and she said, "Oh, like, I have this old box of sheet music, and I don't really want it. Do you want it?" And I was like, "Absolutely yes." So there was one day when and I drove down to her house, and she just gave me this giant box of music, and she brought up this picture of her grandma, her great grandma or whatever, and she said, "Oh, she played piano and performed piano, and I think it was for silent films, musicals, things like that." And super touched that they would just give me this box of free music. I think they watched me play, but I never really talked to them before. And so they just handed me this free music and told me a bit about the history. So I went home and I looked through every sheet of music, and I saw some of them go back to 1918, and I think the most recent one was 1933. And I did not see any women composers, which was a little disappointing to me, but I did see some women that were kind of featured. So one of those is Rockabye Moon, and I will be showing that to you right now. So here's the actual sheet music for Rockabye Moon. It was written by Howard Johnson, Fred Steele, and Morton Lang. And I believe this is the name of the woman who owned the sheet music, Dora. It was only 25 cents, and it was originally introduced and featured as her radio theme song by Ethel Schutte. And she was the star of Whoopi and Ziegfeld's Follies. And I believe that is really what jump-started her career, these two titles right here. A couple more things to note. Her hair, which is cut into a nice bob, and her outfit. Right, and if you flip into the actual music, you will see that it was copyrighted in 1932 by the Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer Corporation in New York. And then there is the back, which features 4 hits of the day. So I learned this sheet music, and I also sang it myself, just so that you can get an idea of what it sounds like and my interpretation of it before I had even listened to her version of it. So I will be playing that next. pianist and not really a singer, so thank you for bearing with me there. But I want to talk a little bit more about the actual music part. So I found a clip of Ethel Schute singing online, and I linked that into a Google Doc that I will be turning into. So if you want to check that out, I would highly encourage you to. I think it's really interesting to see how I interpreted the music now in 2021 versus almost a whole century ago when she sang it. And I do have some classical music background training, but I still have, the music of today influencing my style, so they're very different. For example, instrumentation, she used a whole band and orchestra, whatever, and I just had the piano. Also, she has a different style of singing and a much faster tempo than me, and also the key was a lot higher in the one that I sang. I believe that the people who arranged the music made it higher because there was also like a ukulele part to it, and so they wanted to change the key. So there was that. And by the way, Ethel lived from about 1896 until 1976, so she had a pretty long life. Now, as far as the other music in the early 1900s, I really wanted to focus on music and the suffrage movement. And I came across this collection by the Library of Congress, which was a bunch of sheet music of composers that were inspired by the women's suffrage movement. And so, according to the Library of Congress, quote, from local community suffrage meetings to large-scale citywide marches to prison cells, suffragists consistently unified, rallied, and asserted their unbreakable spirit in song, end quote. So there's a huge relationship between music and the women's suffrage movement. And I will also be linking the collections in case you want to browse through and look at a few of them. But for now, I wanted to focus on a couple of them that caught my eye, such as the Equal Rights Rally Song. And this was dated back in 1918 and composed by Jeanette Armstrong and Edwin Shep. So if you look at the music itself, it's quite simple. And I believe this is intentional because it's for parades and rallies, so you want a lot of people to be able to sing it and remember it and learn it quickly. And the tempo marking itself, which is tempo di marcia, is a marching tempo, also catered towards parades and things. And it's just bubbles over with excitement and empowerment. The lyrics to the chorus are, quote, hurrah, hurrah, for equal rights, hurrah. We pledge our heart, we join the hand, resolved on victory. We are a bold, determined band, and strike for liberty. We are a bold, determined band, and strike for liberty. So, very, very exciting, very riveting, very energy-driven. But what I thought was most interesting from this Library of Congress was the songs that criticized the suffrage movement. And a great example of this is the Women's Suffrage Blues, which was composed by E.S.S. Huntington, and the lyrics were written by James Wingate in 1921. A couple things caught my eye. The title of the song, for example, Women's Suffrage Blues. Now, the blues was was a genre emerging from the African American community, and it was kind of becoming more mainstream in the white community. So, something possibly that was borrowed, this whole genre. And so that has its own connotation. But then also the lyrics themselves are quite interesting. I'm going to read those now, the third page. Quote, I've got the women's suffrage blues, that's all you ever read in the news. Why the women will run the prices so high that all of us good people will have to lay down and die. I've got the women's suffrage blues, but this is what I never choose. Every time I read about politics, I say, those women surely are going to take it at bay. It ain't no joke. I'm going to croak. I've got the women's suffrage blues. End quote. And I especially just cringed at the part where he said, where all of us good people will have to lay down and die. Like, all the women who don't vote and the men, all of us good people are going to suffer for these women who are just wanting to vote. It really puts things into perspective, the way that the common person just thought about the suffrage movement. I know that there's people who were against women voting, but mostly we would research, the president and, important Congress members who and their opinions. But this is just from a musician, from people in the arts. But it really had an impact on the way people saw issues. If you remember my Asian American project, I said that whoever controls the narrative has an impact on what people think about certain issues. So, again, just primary sources like that, they're so important, they're so vital, and I encourage you and anybody else to really pay attention to our music today, because it speaks volumes about what we think is most important and what the issues that we think should be talked about. And I know most of the songs today are just about sex and about dating, and that does speak volumes about our society today. But there's also artists and there's also songs out there that touch on really, really deep issues, and I think it's so powerful to listen to and historically interesting. I can't wait to grow up and to look back and look at how the music has evolved, and not only in meaning but also just the style itself. So thank you very much and have a great day.